Yo, what's good people? So I'm going to be telling you all about the 10 very best, the 10 most devastating defenders in Battlegrounds in Marvel Contest of Champions. I've been a competitive Battlegrounds player since the game mode very first came out over 2 years ago now. I know most of you know this, but I'm just saying this for the new people here. You can definitely trust my opinion. I know my way around the battlegrounds. So let's just jump into the list. At number 10, we have Bullseye. I'm sure a lot of people would expect this guy to be a bit higher up on the list. And if this list was made a couple months ago, he certainly would be. But recently, Kabam have been releasing a lot more counters for Bullseye. He doesn't have the biggest health pool, so he does get nuked really fast if you do have a good counter for him. So he's just not performing as well on defense nowadays. If you are able to catch your opponent without a bleed immune champion, without a evade counter, without a proper counter to Bullseye though, he is still one of the most toxic defenders to fight in the game, and you're guaranteed to take some damage. So I do think that alone gives him a spot on the list, but he may be off on the next one. At the number 9 spot, we have Kindred. Man, the only thing holding Kindred back from being higher up on the list is, like Bullseye, he has a very small health pool. So if you get a great counter to this guy, if you play the match perfectly, he will die very fast. But it's so easy to mess up against this guy, and sometimes you can mess up against him and it's not your fault. If he uses his heavy attack, he will gain charges faster. And when he gets to 50 charges, that's when he starts doing degeneration damage to you. And I swear this guy has AI like Mysterio, like Chavez. He just randomly throws heavy attacks, so he ramps up so fast. You need to be countering Kindred's special attacks to pause his charges. That's not always the easiest thing to do though, especially with certain node combinations. And you need to remember to keep a special attack saved for this guy at the end of the match. Yeah, definitely deserves a spot on the top 10 list. We're moving on to number 8, and this may be a surprise to some people, but I took my Null up to rank 4 as a 7-star, and I have no regrets. I truly do believe he's one of the most underrated champions in the game for Battlegrounds right now, especially on defense. The reason he's such a strong defender is because of the inequity mastery. If you're facing Null in Battlegrounds and your opponent runs this mastery, you suffer 36% reduction in your attack rating. Yes, that is as big as it sounds. On top of that, he doesn't really have any buffs to take advantage of. So your regular Mystic nukes don't really nuke him, especially Juggernaut. For Juggernaut to work against Null, you have to go all the way up to a special 3, and I think that's really what pushes him over the edge to being one of the best Battlegrounds defenders in the game, in my opinion. Now we're moving on to the number 7 spot, and we have Nick Fury. Now, if this guy wasn't already confirmed to be coming as a 7-star, he probably wouldn't make the list. Little 6-star Nick Fury is not holding in there against 7-star rank 3s and 7-star rank 4s. But now that he's confirmed to be coming as a 7-star, I know for a fact he's going to make a comeback in a big way. And you either have this guy or you ban this guy. He's one of the most reliable defenders in the game, because he has 2 lives. He's pretty much guaranteed to stall out the match somewhat, unless you're using one of the very few champions that can cancel his second life, like Deadpool or Danny Moonstar, but not Danny Moonstar because she's trash and a one-trick pony. But yeah, we all know the deal with Nick Fury. 100% deserves to be on this list, especially because he's coming as a 7-star. Now moving on to the number 6 spot is Enchantress, and why Enchantress is so high is because even if you have a perfect counter to her, you can still mess up, and this is what makes her such a valuable defender for Battlegrounds. Because most defenders, like let's say Photon for example, yeah, she's really tricky to fight without a counter, but if you have Mantis or Crossbones, no one's gonna mess up to Photon. That is not the case with Enchantress. Even with the most perfect counters like Titania, Silk, even Spider-Woman, you can still mess up against her, and that is why she is so feared. That is why people rate her so highly. The one thing that holds her back, like Kindred, like Bullseye, she does have a pretty small health pool, so if you do play the match perfectly, you are going to nuke her very fast, but other than that, she's a incredibly strong defender, and with certain node combinations, she can be absolutely brutal and can definitely be one of the best defenders in the entire game. Now we're moving on to the coveted top 5. These are the defenders you really don't want to be fighting without a counter. And speak of the devil, we have Photon. Now, like Null, she synergizes with the Inequity Mastery, and this is mostly what makes her such a strong defender, because if she didn't have this, if she didn't reduce your attack rating by up to 36%, you would be able to nuke her so much faster. But she's actually a really tanky defender. Because of this, she does massive block damage. If you don't play the match right, you don't manage her charges, you send her into pure light form, she throws a special attack, you're just cooked. You can't dex those special attacks, you're absolutely done. Of course, Photon had to be on this list, and I think some people may be surprised she's not even higher. But moving on to the number 4 spot, we have Deathless Thanos, and what's so valuable about this guy on defense is that protection. If he didn't have that, he would not be a good defender at all. But that protection literally makes him a guaranteed stall. Even with the best counters, you can barely nuke this guy in under 60 seconds. He's not very difficult to fight at all. Most players, even non-competitive players, can finish against Deathless Thanos near 100% health. But having that guaranteed stall is so good for competitive battlegrounds, because most players finish fights near 100% health anyway, and Deathless Thanos just stalls out the match long enough for you to get the win most of the time. He's pretty much a automatic draft. Now we're moving on to the number 3 spot, and we have Onslaught. A lot of people have got very used to fighting this guy. Pretty much everyone can dex his special attacks perfectly nowadays, but what makes this guy so annoying to fight is his janky ass AI, man. He just does not want to let you intercept him. He'll stand there blocking the entire match, he'll just start dashing off, he'll sidestep you. His AI is what makes him such a strong defender, but other than that, he has that crush charge where if you're not paying attention to that, you're gonna get hit in the face by what's basically a unblockable attack. Maybe Onslaught could be at number 2, but what stops him is you can get free willpower healing off this guy if you know to block a single hit of his special one to get a magnetism debuff on you. But even with that, it's still so easy to mess up to Onslaught, and he's definitely a top 3 defender in the game. Now at the number 2 spot is Armen Zola, and I am going to make a video discussing my opinions on this guy, but he's very much like Serpent. You need a very specific counter. You can't outskill your way against Armen Zola. Most champions just cannot heavy counter his heavy attack because they don't have the reach. So you need a champion with really good heavy reach, or a champion that can parry non-contact attacks. If you do have that, he's not that difficult to fight, but there's really not that many ideal counters for this guy, especially that people run in their Battlegrounds deck. So this just makes him a super tough defender, and even if you do get a good counter for him, that 10% safeguard which he has makes him so tanky and makes him a guaranteed stall on defense, on top of doing a bit of chip damage to you if you decide you want to bait out his special 2, which with most champions you do want to bait his special 2 because that's how you get a heavy counter in. You can't heavy counter his special 1. So yeah, if you bait that special 2, you're taking a bit of disintegration damage as well. Now we're moving on to some honourable mentions before we head on to the number 1 spot, and the first one is Sentinel. He's not that strong of a defender in competitive battlegrounds, but I know a lot of people in lower tiers really struggle with this guy, so I figured I'd put him on the list. Just a super tanky defender with a bunch of critical resistance, physical resistance. If you don't get a good counter to this guy, there's a very good chance you're gonna time out, and this isn't even mentioning when he goes below 15%. As long as he's duped, he gains those armor ups. When those armor ups expire, he gets a bunch of power gain, so you might get special freed on top of all that. Now, Gentle, I really underestimated this guy. I did not think he would be a good defender whatsoever because of that recoil damage he takes, but I was wrong. I hold my hands up. I was completely wrong about Gentle on defense. He is still super tanky, even with taking recoil damage, which is crazy. Every 15 hits on your combo meter, he's going to gain a passive unstoppable, which is very annoying. You need to make sure he's stunned when you activate this unstoppable, otherwise you're going to get hit in the face. If you crit him twice in a row or let him use his special 2, he gains a bunch of resistance. He's just such a tank on defense, and honestly he was so close to making the list over Bullseye, maybe on the next one. Now we have Maestro, which the reason he's not on the list is because there's so many champions that can nuke Maestro in 30 to 40 seconds nowadays, but if you don't get a counter to this guy, you're pretty much guaranteed to time out, so we have to give him a honorable mention. Still, most of the time when you put Maestro on defense, he's probably going to get nuked, but if you are able to catch your opponent without a counter, it's pretty much a guaranteed win. And for the last honorable mention is a bit of a sad one. It's Domino, and I say it's sad because Domino was always one of the best defenders in the game, and she's had such a massive fall off just because of how many counters Kabam have released to her recently. Not just in the tech class, people are realizing you can counter her with long shot, you can counter her with Deathless Thanos. People are just running so many more Domino counters in their deck nowadays, and if you actually get a good counter to her, she's not very hard to fight. She's not going to be dealing any of that unavoidable damage, but she still deserves a honorable mention because, yeah, if you catch your opponent without a counter, you're cooked. Number 1, probably no surprise to anyone who has ever played this game or anyone who has had the misfortune of having to fight Serpent on defense. I don't have to because I ban this guy every match. I refuse to rank him. I hate him. I don't think he's a fair defender. I don't like putting him at the number 1 spot of any list. I don't like his design. I think he's bullshit. I think his power gain is too strong. I think he has too many resistances. I think not being able to dex his special attacks is incredibly stupid. But with all that being said, he is the strongest defender in the game. There's not that many direct counters to him, and even the most direct counters still take around 50 to 60 seconds, which is long for an ideal counter. The only champion who can really nuke Serpent in like 30 seconds is Tigra, and she's not even available as a 7-star yet. She will be out soon though, so maybe that will lower Serpent's value a tiny bit, but I doubt it, man. It's very easy to mess up to Serpent even with Tigra. But yeah, of course he's at the number 1 spot. I'm not going to say he deserves the number 1 spot because F Serpent, honestly. But that's going to be the end of the video. If you did enjoy it, I'd appreciate it if you drop a like, subscribe, all of that good stuff. Appreciate all of you. See you all in the next video.